Hi everyone. My name is Marius. Today I will be kind of talking with you about the business financials. I got invited to this event unexpectedly, and probably in the beginning I was thinking myself, why I'm the one who is teaching with you, talking with you, but later on, when I went through the materials myself, I was preparing them, I kind of felt that actually maybe I'm the right person to help you understand why in specific stages of your startup you will need these things that I will talk about. My background, shortly, I graduated Stockholm School of Economics in Riga. I started my career as management consulting in a local strategy consulting boutique called Strategy Labs. I worked there for, I think, 4.5 years. I started as an analyst and finished as a project manager. So we worked internationally on all kinds of business cases in different industries, starting from retail, telecoms, geographies, US, Romania, Belarus, Lithuania, Estonia, West Africa, and so on. And afterwards, I joined the Luben Group, which is related with Strategy Labs. So it's basically the same group of companies. I worked as a group CFO. Luben Group is a group of companies that provide professional services, legal, tax, advisory, trusts, and so on. And afterwards, since September 2017, I joined BaltCap, which is the largest private equity investor in the Baltics. So what private equity funds do or investors do, they manage funds. So we have investors that invest in our fund, like EBRD, European International Fund, pension funds, and we manage these funds by investing in companies, in growing companies, in company equity. We're not some kind of bank. We're not lending money. We're investing in companies, becoming shareholders. And our business model is based on kind of improving company value in, say, 5-7 years, exiting company and earning on this capital gain. So today's agenda will be the following. I will start with a short motivation. So basically, the topic is called business financials. So I thought I will give you a little bit of theoretical part. It's not too deep. It's not too sophisticated. It's not too elaborate. But I think it's enough in your stage when we're talking about startups. We'll go through basic financial statements, how to read them, how to interpret them. Then later on, as a consequent step, we'll talk about planning. How should you yourself plan your companies or startups or projects, financial status. Then I will talk a little bit about the investor point of view. So at some point, if your company will be growing and you will need to attract additional financing, you will need to go to investors and ask for additional financing. Investors here, I mean, it's a little bit not necessarily investors into companies' equity. It might be just lenders as bank and so on, but things that they look at and the questions that they ask you will be very similar. So I will try to cover that as well, and some tips and tricks how you should present and prepare these kind of financials. So yeah, why should you care about financials? Before that, I'm not too familiar with the audience and project. So who of you are from business schools and economics and have taken accounting classes? Okay, few. Who then other ones? Whom of you have technological background? Okay, and others? What you do? You're lawyers or some other social sciences? What kind of natural sciences? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So the following content will be quite broad. So if you have specific questions and you want to dig deeper, ask me. I'll try to explain because we have very diverse audience here. So few reasons why we should use or care about financial statements as a kind of structured form or something that you should know is few. There are internal reasons, external. Internal is basically that once you put your assumptions and your business plan into numbers, once you start really challenging yourself and kind of doing some sanity checks, comparing with your competitors, benchmarking with what's the kind of top peers in your industry, with someone in your local region, you will understand how your business model differs from theirs. You will understand how your business model should develop over time. And this is good exercise just to do for yourself. So you'll get more clarity on how it actually, how these numbers interact with reality and the business model itself. It helps to plan wisely because it's a structured form. It's people all over the world use these three types of financial statement: profit loss account, balance sheet, cash flow statement. I'll explain later. I will elaborate later. But these are standards everywhere. So wherever you will go, you will talk about these three statements. They might differ in form. There might be different accounting standards. But this is, I think, not of your concern at the moment. You need to understand the logic and basics. And if you need something specific, you can always hire some consultant or accountant. Third internal reason is really that financial statements, your budgets, your plans put in a structured form, and then the way you monitor actual results and comparing them, it will help you to monitor your progress. It will help you not to miss the times when actually you need to take some action, when you need to change the course, or you need to maybe, you see that you're growing, but and it's very clear that additional dollar investment is actually kind of returning some value very fast. So it means that you need to grow faster. If you're seeing that you're growing, but your your overheads or your operational expenses are growing somewhat in line, you might, it depends on business model, but you might revise your how are you performing your operations, and sometimes you will need to cost cut and pivot there as well. There are external reasons as well. So when you will go to when you will reach the stage where you will need to talk with more senior people and like experienced people in that had exited few businesses, and you will want to attract them on your board, for example, to give you some advice, you will need to explain your business model, and the best way to do that is actually preparing some kind of forecast, showing that you understand your key value drivers behind the business model, and so on. If you come and you lay down your nice idea, it might work as well, but it usually works at very early stages, when it's only idea stage. When you will enter startup phase, where we actually will test your business model, you will need some numbers, and you will need to communicate your business model to outsiders. Financial statements help to do that in a structured way and in the way that everyone understands. And the last thing is that at some point you will need financing, external one. So everyone who will provide you financing, be it bank or some other lenders, or be it other investors in your shares, in your equity, it will help you to explain the business model. So this part will be a little boring, at least for me. It's a little boring. I said I worked as a CFO for 1 year, so it's not a lot. I worked with financials all the time before, but I'm not a big fan of reading these accounting statements and so on. I'm much more excited about actually understanding the key value drivers, but this will be a little bit later in the planning part. So let's first talk a little bit about the boring stuff, so the financial statements and the technical things. So there are three types of financial statements. I'm trying to explain top down, so that everyone who are different. You're in different level of understanding of these things, so you would understand all equally. So one one type is profit and loss account. Sometimes its abbreviation is P&L. Sometimes it's called income statement, mostly in American countries. Balance sheet and cash flow statement. I will explain what they mean later. All of them are interrelated. It means that all of them represent different side of your business, and all of them are needed, but the focus on specific type of statement or way of thinking about your business in different stage of your startup will be different. In beginning, I'm mostly, as I'm right now working with companies, and I'm looking where to invest our investor money. I'm usually looking at profit and loss and cash flow, because it represents operations. Profit and loss represents operations, and cash flow statements. Cash flow represents, the health of the company, the liquidity of the company. So I want to understand when this company will need additional financing, when you will need to put your own money so that it would still maintain growing and so on. Balance sheet is something that represents a specific picture, a specific point in time. It's also very important, but it's more important in asset-heavy businesses. So like factories and so on. So this, all assets fall into balance sheets. And specifics among these three types of financial statements, specifics of what kind of expense lines will be in profit and loss, how to interpret them, and so on, will really depend on first of all business model. So it's very different for products and services, manufacturing and asset-light businesses. Also, what industry or sector you're operating in. So it's very much different whether you're operating a sports club chain or some kind of retail business versus where you're a technology company and you need to heavily invest in your research and development. Also, it depends when you will be planning and preparing these statements and showing it to someone. It can be like very detailed and it can be less detailed. You can group some of the costs in P&L. You can really get into a lot of details into cash flow statement, and it all depends what's your aim and what do you want to show to your audience. So whether it's investor, whether it's your internal audience inside the company. So I don't know, after 1 year of operations, you finally reach break even and you want to celebrate with your fellow team members and your team. So there will be one kind of presentation of numbers. But it's more about the form, so it's not the main thing. And the second thing about the form is it depends on accounting standards. So in Europe you have some kind of accounting standards. In US, other ones are more popular. So for public companies, you have more strict rules. But I think you shouldn't be concerned about that now because it's too much details, and it actually doesn't change the essence. What are these three types of financial statements? How they are different, and what's their aim, right? So it's profit and loss. It helps to answer questions like, so whether my company is profitable or when it will become profitable, why it's not profitable, how much profit I will generate. So maybe right now you're in a startup phase where you're still searching for a business model. It's a very different phase from the phase where you will find your business model and you will say that, okay, this is my running these are my running costs. This is the revenue generating model that I believe in, and this is the stable model, and I understand this. I can derive some kind of conclusions out of that. In the startup phase, it's a little bit different. You're always iterating. You're always changing your model. So it's more dynamic, but it also makes sense to really follow your financials and especially plan them ahead. And the profit and loss account represents your company's profitability, but over a period of time. So it can be statement which represents your P&L for month, for quarter, for year. Usually year is the longest because otherwise it doesn't make sense to look at it. Differently from profit and loss, balance sheet is a picture in point of time. So today, I will look at my company's balance sheet, and balance sheet represents what do I own, what are my assets. Assets can be tangible and intangible, fixed and current. I will explain that later as well. But assets is something that I own, and liabilities on the other side is something I owe to someone, because I'm doing business with different parties. I'm buying goods. I'm buying raw materials. I'm producing some kind of products out of them. And actually, balance sheet is a kind of barometer of health. So, so it shows whether your business is at the moment is healthy. Can it sustain itself? Do you have enough assets to pay your obligations? And also it indicates whether you need additional financing, or, for example, sometimes sometimes if you see that your liabilities are higher than assets, it means that you have negative equity, and equity is what its owner's part, so what's owners in that business. So if you see that it's negative equity, it means that you need to take action and need to finance the business somewhat. I also will get into more detail later. Cash flow statement is very important, and what it shows sources where your cash or assets that can be, now let's say cash, where your cash comes from and where you use it. So, and it's also about period of time. So you can do cash flow you can see a cash flow for a year, but usually in a startup phase you will need to plan your cash flow a month ahead, 2 weeks ahead. I don't know. It depends on the dynamism of your business. But what it shows what's the liquidity level in the company. So how fast can you how fast your cash converts into some kind of additional value, whether you should be planning some kind of problems or issues coming, or you should be thinking of how to finance and how to make this cash flow sustainable. Also, we'll get into more details later. So I explained about these three top down, and let's go through each of them. Before, I want to ask, has any of you worked with financial statements or any of these before? Have you read them or you prepared them? Yeah. So which one? You were reading, analyzing maybe, or you were preparing for your own business? I was
doing it for this project, for my own business. I was trying to make not maybe profit and loss, and to look at which point I will
break even.
Yeah, break even.
Yeah. Okay. Become profitable.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have that already.
I have it. I will maybe discuss it later with you after.
Yeah. Sure. So this is one of the targets and goals of this whole lecture, is that after this you will get the basic understanding, and you kind of could be able to, at least at high level, plan your finances for your project, and understand whether when you will become profitable, what are the main cost lines, where you should focus, where you should not focus. It's also a very important question to answer for yourself. Getting deeper into profit loss, I'm still in the boring part, so bear with me. This is about the structure. So usually you have, at the top line, you have revenues. Revenues consist of, it can be revenues from selling your products, it can be revenues from selling your services. It depends. But it all sums up into your total revenues. Also important thing, sometimes you will see gross revenue, net revenue. Net revenue is relevant when you have some kind of business where you pay commission for someone, or you resell things instantly. So in those cases, you will see you will see your sales numbers, and net revenue will be something where you take your sales number, I don't know, and then deduct 30% instantly. You will not, it's your commission, so you even shouldn't record it in your cost of sales. It depends. Sometimes you record it in cost of sales later. But basically, revenues is something that you get in the company, your inflows. Cost of sales is something that you spend to make those sales, right? So it's something that is infrastructure or your support team or systems in your company or even cost of services or cost of products. So if I'm reselling, if I'm selling something that I order from China and resell here, it goes cost of products that I will pay for Chinese merchant will come into this line. So this is something which is usually very variable and very much depends on the quantity of things you sell or services that, or amount of services that you kind of provide. Mostly it's variable cost. You should remember this, it's term variable cost and it's direct cost. Direct, it means it's directly related with your revenue generating activities. And when you take revenues and you deduct this cost of sales, you get gross income. Gross income is gross profit, gross margin. It's something that presents the amount of money you get on direct selling activity or providing service activity to someone, right? It doesn't include all the back office costs. It doesn't include all your accountants, all your auditors and lawyers, which help you to run the organization, but they're not directly impacting your sales. So why it is important? It's very good sometimes to check your own gross profit and gross profit margin, which is percent, and it's gross profit divided by revenue. And you see that, for example, after providing and selling services to people, to someone, to businesses, you see that your gross profit is, for example, I don't know, 60%. And then you compare it with your competitors. It's very important to be able to compare and to think about the competitor businesses, whether you're comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges. But if it's so, if you're doing something very similar in a similar environment, for example, the same market, then you can say, okay, his gross margin is 60%, mine is 40%. Something is wrong with my business model, or maybe I'm in different environment. Maybe I should, understand in which parts of this. Maybe I'm in different country and it's more competitive for the same thing. I can charge less, or maybe I'm too small, so I buy products from China too expensive. But you need to really break it down into pieces and understand where do you differ and how do you differ. This helps you to understand how your business model is different and what are your strengths and weaknesses. I think in startup phase, it's one of the most important things, right? Especially when you're growing, you will not be profitable for some time. So gross margin is something that really shows the kind of I wouldn't say sustainability, but viability of your business model. Because everything after that is other costs. Some of them are fixed. So it means that if you hire accountant in your startup, usually you will not hire another accountant for a year or two if your business does not explode exponentially. It means that every additional dollar that you will earn that you will get in your revenue will translate into higher gross income or higher gross margin, but the fixed part will stay. So it means it will go down and it will translate into higher overall profit, which is very good, and you want to achieve that, right? So you want to have your business sustainable. You want to have your bottom line above zero and highly profitable. So talking about these other costs, as I said, most of them are fixed. So it means that they might be related with a headcount, or let's call it headcount is how many people you have in the company, or with how many people you have in company in specific functions. But it's not necessarily related with volume of your sales or volume of the business you do. These costs can be research and development, sales and marketing. So sometimes sales are there in these overheads or other costs or operating costs, let's call them. Actually, I think there's a mistake, so I should have written not other costs, but operating costs. So it's operating costs. But sometimes if your sales are directly related with your salesman performance, they will go into cost of sales. So this might be tricky. You need to really kind of think about these things, like distinctively, whether each additional salesman brings additional sales, or it's just a kind of two people, sales analysts, who generate leads and then give to sales. And it doesn't matter how much of the business you will do, you will still have these two analysts. Sales and marketing, general and administrative, all kind of office expenses, telecommunication, and so on, and other expenses. Usually it's a small line. And then you have EBITDA, or operating profit. What it shows how much you earn from your operations, from your business with all its with the revenue generating activities here, and with the organization that you need to maintain. But what it does not show, how much you will spend on interest, on all kind of loans that you took, on the financing, how much taxes you will pay, because this is not directly related with your business model. It's more related with something external. So actually here should be taxes, depreciation, amortization, and interest. EBITDA means that it's earnings. Earnings is profit. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. After you deduct that, you have net income, which is something that at the end of year you can think of how do you want to distribute. This is something that is left for the owners. You can invest it next year into your business. You can pay out dividends. It depends. So this is like high level overview. What we talked with a colleague is this break-even point. I think this is very important for startups. I didn't make this graph myself. Some of the graphs I copied from internet. You can find a lot of these yourself. So if you will get interested into understanding more about finances. Actually, a very good source and very easy to understand is investopedia.com. So just you hear something, okay, fixed costs. You type in, it really well explains. Sometimes it has some infographics, some examples. You'll really understand how to do that. So in the startup phase, it's really extremely important to understand, manage the relationship between this variable cost and revenue. So in the beginning, your output, your revenue generating activities or your sales will be low, and you will still incur some kind of cost. First, you will incur variable costs, but they don't start from, they're just part of the cost. Some parts will be fixed costs. So fixed costs, as the name says, they stay fixed. So they stay fixed. Variable cost is something which varies with revenue, but as you see here, it's not direct relationship. So it doesn't go as steep as revenue. So what it means that every additional dollar that you get from revenue, from sales, it has some kind of margin, and it's much steeper. The line is much steeper, and at some point you should reach break-even point. It means that your fixed costs plus your variable cost for X amount for the output, which is quantity here, should kind of intersect, and you should be at zero. You should start becoming profitable. And the more you increase the output, the more profitable you get. This is theoretical because the relationship will not go like straight. So at some point, this profitability will start decreasing. But I mean, anyways, this is your first milestone when you're thinking about the finances of your startup, is to reach this and to show good growth. If you're showing good growth in sales, in numbers of members, users, clients, it means that the business has good prospects. Sometimes it can be not profitable yet because sometimes, or because of, I don't know, circumstances, you have very high fixed costs, but let's say that after you will grow to a particular level, you will be able maybe to decrease fixed costs, maybe you will become a more trusted partner, maybe you will be able to insource some of the services, not outsource everything, which decreases the cost. So the main milestone right now for you is to think about the break-even and about the growth. Okay, this is the picture of, I'll show some examples, so I thought that let's talk about the company which sells lightsabers. This is, we're going closer to the end of the boring part. This is the P&L, example of simple form P&L. How does it look like? So this is the company that sells lightsabers. In 2017, they made a revenue of 1 million in 12 months. So this is a full year result. And to sell those 1 million, they spent 450,000. So it means that their gross margin or gross profit, however you call it, is 550,000. It's 55% of revenue. It's quite good. It depends on industry, but it's not bad. Then you see you have your OPEX or operating expenses. You have to pay your salaries. You have to pay for rent, whatever rent is that, office, warehouse, and so on. You have sales and marketing, general and admin, other expenses, and then you get to your operating profit or EBITDA, which is 17% of revenue, which is 165,000. Then, because in order to sell all these things, you had some assets. These assets are they're presented in balance sheet, and their value, you capitalize them, and their value kind of decreases over time. So it means that this number is usually accounting term, and it doesn't represent actual kind of cash flow in most cases, the actual money you will need to spend, but it's presented here as it presents how much money theoretical you should need to reinvest into the asset base to keep it at the same level or to produce this amount of business that you're doing above in the upper part. Then you get this EBIT, then you pay or receive interest, whether you borrow or lend money, and you have some kind of tax. If your EBIT is positive, then you pay income tax. And then you get net profit and loss, which you kind of can decide what you're doing. For you, most important thing is EBITDA. What is below, I wouldn't care much about that. Second thing is this balance sheet. So typical items, this is very, very high level, but so you have left part, which is assets. So what you got, what you have, what you own. And then you have liabilities and equity. And assets are usually separated into two parts. So it's fixed assets. So you have real estate. You own some kind of real estate. You have some plants, equipment, machinery. You have some kind of intangible assets, which are brand or prestige, whatever is that. This is very hard to evaluate. And it's sometimes a part where it's manipulated in financial statements. So, I usually don't look at that. No, if you're in FMCG business, fast-moving consumer goods, and you have Palmolive or I don't know, Dosia or Ariel or something, most of the value comes from the brand and then the distribution channel somewhat. Current assets. This is the let's say liquid assets. This is something. Receivables or debtors is something that you will receive that you sold your products and someone pays you after 30 days, so it comes into here in receivables. You have some kind of inventory, and you have your cash and cash equivalents, which is something very liquid and something that you can kind of cash out if you need or spend it. Liabilities, so it's something that you owe, payables, creditors, there are people to whom you owe. So it's very good when if you're in trading business, there's some kind of relation between receivables and payables, because you're buying from someone and to you selling to someone. And what you need to do is you need to shorten the time when you will get these things and make the time where you will pay to your creditors longer. It means that there will be this balance, this difference, where your creditors will finance your business. So you will get more cash earlier than you will need to spend. Debt, this is usually bank loans, all kind of accrued liabilities. This is something like pension schemes and usually related with labor. I will say this list is not exhaustive, but it kind of gives you a basic picture what these two sides comprise of. And equity is what is left for owners. So when you start the company, you need to put this nominal capital or this owner's capital, founder's capital. Then sometimes additional investors, like me in my company, we come in the company, we pay, we buy additionally issued shares, for example. So we have additional paid-in capital. You have net or profit loss brought forward from previous year. So for example, last year you did profit. It increased your equity. You didn't distribute it, so it came into this part. It increased your equity. It's what is left for owners eventually. And this is also net income. So this is this year's profit. I would say it's very good to understand the relationship and how assets liabilities work. And the level that your equity should always be positive. But in your case, I would just kind of limit yourself to that. Equity should be positive. Depending on your business model, you might want or not want to be asset heavy. And that's it. I don't know. I wouldn't care so much, actually. This is, I'll go briefly. So it's like, these are total assets of this company. So last year it had less assets, then it increased its activity, and now it has somewhat related more assets. So now it has less cash in the bank account at this specific date, at 31st of December. But it has more, so it increased its output, increased its activity, and it has more receivables from people to whom you sold. They owe you. So you have more receivables. You have more inventory because your output increased. You're keeping things ready to be sold. Your fixed assets, you kept the same level of fixed assets because probably to increase that output you didn't need more, and it just decreased 20 because probably depreciated. So its value over time decreased a bit. You also, because you were buying more of the inventory, your payables increased. Your debt to finance this whole thing or also increased a bit. And what it meant that, that this number here and that number above, they always must equal. This is the equation. So it meant that, as the owner, you increase the output, but what is left for you this year is a small decrease or basically the same level. We're investing into business, it means. Okay, that's it about the balance sheet. Cash flow. This is, I couldn't stress more how important is cash flow, especially in your case. Who of you have your own personal budgets? I don't know, some kind of spending plans, or do you do that? Yeah? Do you, for how much in advance do you plan? Is it your yearly budget, your big expense items that you need to save money for, or you do it on a monthly basis, on a weekly?
Depends, actually.
Yeah?
Monthly. If you have huge expenses.
Yeah? Good. Very good. So yeah, several important things about cash flows. I will not show the statement because I think it's useless in its form. I will show you something else. Why cash flow is important? Companies do not go bankrupt because they are not profitable at a specific point of time. Companies go bankrupt because they are insolvent, or they cannot finance the business. They cannot, at specific point in time, meet their obligations. These are the reasons why they go bankrupt. So, and it's very much dependent on the cash flow. So if you need to plan your cash flow, you need to see that in upcoming 3 months, I will be spending more than I will be earning. But I believe that I need to be spending more now to achieve some kind of growth or some kind of trajectory in my, in my sales and my business output. It means that you need to think now how to finance that. You can finance it differently. You can take a bank loan. You can finance, the best way is to finance from creditors. So yeah, you get money faster upfront from your clients, and you pay later. For example, I'm on the board of this fitness club chain, Impulse, and they have these lemon gyms. So sometimes this business model allows you to get upfront payments for 12-month this package, kind of membership. What it essentially means is that clients are financing you, but usually you need to give some kind of discount so that it will happen, and then you need to compare if you can get cheaper financing from the bank for the things that you need for improving your operations or expanding and so on. So maybe you should do that. If you can get cheaper from clients, maybe it makes sense for you and for them to do that. So different ways to finance. Cash flow is very important. Yeah. There are 3 ways in the statements. You will see 3 lines. So it's like cash flow, cash from operating activities, investing and financing. But as you're like startup and you should be focusing on your operations, and you should put your all effort and focus into there. I'm not sure investing and financing are really worth exploring. Basically, operating is, if you're a trading company, you buy and sell, and this all cash flow is something that you will see in the cash from operating activities. Cash from investing activities will be that if you have, I don't know, available cash, and you decide that, I don't know, you will invest. Simply, you will invest, and you get some kind of, I don't know, dividends from that, or some kind of other cash flow. Financing. So, for example, you finance your business with bank loans, and then you need to pay for that, so it will be cash outflow from financing. And I think what is important is that if you really need to understand the statements in the form of it, for P&L and for balance sheet, cash flow, I think, I don't know, I wouldn't care much, because what you need to do is you actually need to have a very convenient form for yourself to plan the cash flow, not to report it, not to show historic cash flow, because it doesn't give you any insight. Finally, I'm finished with that part. Yeah. This is the part where I think we will have a small exercise. Yeah. Planning is something, budgeting, forecasts, your business forecast, they're synonyms somewhat. And you don't want to run into this kind of situation where, someday you say that, oh, fuck it, it's not working. I didn't understand where I'm losing. I didn't understand where, how big are my expenses. I didn't plan my cash flow, and now everyone will get screwed, and I will fire people, and everyone will start feeling bad in the company. Other people will start leaving, and it has really bad externality, like bad impact on your business. So we don't want to run into that. So what the cure for that is planning, simply. This is something that I really liked in consulting, when we would go with very difficult, I would say, or sophisticated case to a client and try to put it in very simple manner and explain, and try to kind of dissect this whole picture and say, simplify it, and then you see really where are the problems with your company, or where do you need to focus, because you cannot focus on everything. You need to put your focus on most value-adding activities, be it something that generates most margin, most sales, or something that where you would cut the cost and it would have the highest impact. This is the example of this lightsabers company, and let's start from here. So if you say that you're interested into your company's profitability, it's EBITDA, and it consists of only two things, and it's as simple as that. It's your revenue minus costs. You can go deeper, but essentially it's your revenue minus cost. What it means, you need to improve, maximize revenue, and minimize your costs. Okay, cool. This is clear. Let's go further. So in this company, their revenue consists of only two things. First thing is that revenue from sales of lightsabers, and second one is revenue that they get for additional warranty for these sabers. So let's say that they sell these sabers in Topocentras. If you buy a lightsaber in Topocentras, they will ask you, do you want to get additional warranty? And usual warranty is 1 year, you will get 3-year warranty, pay me this amount of money. And you say, okay, this is the risk, I don't want to take that risk, I will pay for the warranty. So this is let's say that they get this revenue. Let's continue now with the top line, with the revenue, so it will be easier to understand. Now I'm thinking, okay, so if it's only two things, and I'm thinking about sales of lightsabers and this additional revenue, you need to actually understand what's the proportion. So I would say probably in this company, the sales of lightsabers is 95%, and 5% is this warranty. Okay, so I would say I wouldn't even care about this warranty. It's something that consumers like. It's something that's a part of the package. Let's keep it. I don't care. Let's focus on the sales. So let's separate and let's understand how to improve what drives these sales. What drives in this case is that it's number of sales, number of these lightsabers sold, and their average price. So you can impact both. One, you will need to, for average price, you will need to take some kind of pricing action. You will need to look at what are competitors charging, whether you can increase the price and not lose a lot of your clients. Maybe you can make bundles of green saber, red saber, and I don't know, blue saber, and it's somehow you can play with the pricing and then increase average price. It depends. Number of lightsabers you can improve by basically selling more. And then the logic is also very simple. In this case, it's simple sales process, so they have a number of salespeople, and we assume that all of them kind of are working well. And then you have, that what's the average number of these sabers one salesman sell. And it also, depends on how much sales leads you generate. Okay, let's say they're not selling in Topocentras, but they're selling directly. They're going to companies and they're selling these lightsabers. And second one is, this average percent of conversion, so whether your brand is trusted will impact whether this conversion from leads to the closed sale will improve. So this is just the method how you split and simplify this whole financial, thing into some kind of very important value drivers. You try to estimate which of them are most important. It means that which of them are most impactful. And you try to either maximize them or minimize, in essence, optimize somehow. So for example, in this case, I know that that price might be my bottleneck, and average number of lightsabers this salesperson sells. So I checked with competitors that usually the conversion for similar things is, I don't know, like from the lead to the closed deal should be 15%. In my case, it's 5. So it kind of, I need to start thinking. So if I will invest into training of these salespeople, or if I will, hire better ones, and I will pay 200 euros more, or maybe I will change motivation system, how that will impact the number of leads, the average number of these lightsabers this one person sells, and how it will translate through this whole chain into revenue. And if it makes sense for me, I should do that. And this will be investment that will, improve value. So I think that as you are thinking of startup and you want to have like successful startup, you really need to kind of take your business idea, simplify it, focus on most critical areas, and really put all your energy into improving those. It might be not only quantifiable things. I just make it. This is an example for me because it was like super easy to think of. Sometimes there are some kind of more soft things like feedback from clients. Let's say that average conversion from lead to close sale is bad relative to industry average or industry best peers because all my salesmen are rude. It's very soft thing, but it impacts this thing. And then when you simplify like that, you start asking your questions. You have hypotheses. You have 5, 10 hypotheses. Go through. You fix them, and then you first that these first 8 hypotheses are not true. So it means I don't have problem in that part, but I might have problem in those 2 other parts. So now I will fix it. So this is a little bit, I'm going a little bit out of the scope of the business financials, but I think the way of thinking, the way of really putting a KPI, a number on some kind of activity, on your business model, really dissecting it to specific pieces and optimizing those, it's one of the biggest value-added things. If you cannot dissect it like so easily, it means that probably you need to work on clarifying for yourself what are you doing. And this is key. I think I shouldn't go more into detail into this. Talking about costs, so you have these direct costs, indirect, and so on, whatever. So what I want to do right now, are you sitting in your groups somehow, right, or not? Yeah? I would like you to think of maybe not so detailed, maybe more simplistic, maybe 2 or 3 level tree, and try to dissect these key value items of your business model. And then we will try, to discuss how to optimize that. So I think that maybe let's have like 7-8 minutes for that. Let's do that, okay? Good. By the way, until now I'm talking really a lot. You're not asking anything. Is it all clear? Yeah? Good. Good, let's do that. Is everyone having their group, or you can do this individually as well? Then you can go deeper. But first, maybe like this Čia techniškai, čia žinok, aš nepadėsiu, bet jeigu nori suprasti tą biznio modelį,
Минус получается, сколько у нас там? Не минус. Получается у нас, короче, если 45 пост компьютера, Надо не понимать цену, надо просто искать цену, мне кажется. Потому что для понятия цены ты, как говорится, как модель либо идти полностью.
How's it going? Let's have maybe 3-4 minutes and we could discuss. If you have questions, I'm available to answer them.
Expansion, то есть я это потом, как говорится, когда делаешь future chapter, можно точно использовать, чтобы смотреть, сколько месяцев для
Okay, maybe someone's ready to discuss which level of detail you are at. Second is this one, right? Somewhere. Okay, let's try to finish. And if there are things that you don't know, you can always put it under other. So it's probably you should always start with the most important things, and then you can leave that.
How far?
Yeah. I mean, it depends, So, if you believe that most of the potential, and you believe usually based on, like your research on the numbers, so you can really dig deep into only one or two. It depends. But in this case, try to brainstorm a bit. I don't know. Just I'm interested how your business models can be dissected. This is pretty obvious because it's usually direct costs, indirect costs, operational is the same for everyone. It's interesting how you generate your money, your sales, top line, and if there's some specifics in costs as well. Interesting. A year? It doesn't matter. Yes.
The salesman is still alive?
Sorry?
In nowadays business, the salesman is still alive?
Salesman? I think yes. It is. It depends whether it's B2C. Sometimes you can automatize it, but if you're in B2B, it's all about relationships in most of the businesses. I don't know. It depends. So, for example, in the company that I work right now, so we're managing fund which is the owner of or partial owner of some of the companies. So in some companies we try to automatize the sales process because it's very very easy to understand product, very consumer related, and it's the same gym subscription. So you know that it's what you get, you know how much it costs. You go to internet, you subscribe somehow, and you pay, and that's it. But if you're selling coffee machines to offices,
yes, but if we take into account the audience, like newcomers to the market, like young people, do they really need some salesman?
I mean, it depends. What do you call salesman? But
still.
I think yes, because this is sales are, at least in my opinion, sales is for early stage businesses. Sales is main focus, one of the most important focus. I don't know how else can you generate these sales. I mean,
but I just asked not because I think that it's like that. But I just received a message from Swedish businessmen that they said that we can save like 45% of expenses just to taking out the retailers, and they are like wholesalers. They say that they will sell directly to the customer without retailers.
Okay, so they develop some kind of platform where it allows to cancel out from this value chain the intermediary, and it's good for both parties. I mean, yeah, it's obviously all of the business tries to go there because it's technology allows it, but not all of the businesses are yet in that stage. I think it's very good. It's very good trend. I like it as well, but because what it does, it actually somehow optimizes the value that you actually get from the product, from the service, rather than paying for the inefficiencies of the market and a lot of middlemen. But I agree, it's good trend, but it's in a lot of businesses still the old school. Okay, let's discuss. So I see that there were some individual people and teams. So let's start with teams. They were discussing most. Maybe let's start with your team. What's your business idea? What's your business model?
Well, we have the storage mining kind of facility, which is quite binary and also in the startup phase now. So, but yeah, we're currently not actually like investing or something like that.
Storage.
storage mining. So it's with the IT stuff. Cryptocurrencies, probably
Yeah,
heard about that.
yeah, I
as
heard
well.
about it.
So our main cost is mainly the hard drives, and the variable cost would be actually the hard drives is main cost and also variable one. The not variable one, the fixed one is electricity, and the retail price that we are actually selling our drives is approximately 220 euros. So the hardware itself is 170 plus electricity around 9. And we come towards the 41 euros profit per unit. Yet we also have to basically put those drives onto one system, which costs us around 900 euros to actually be able to store 45 drives, which brings our total net profit to 21 euros per unit. And that's pretty much it, because since it's our startup, we are not paying ourselves salaries and so on, so we can't actually expand furthermore. So, yeah.
But how do you, like, theoretically, how would you operate? You're operating at your capacity, or, I mean, what's the number? You know, your revenue should grow in line with number of clients that pay for the service that you give. How it's priced on? It's priced on bandwidth, or it's priced on just
on time, basically.
On time.
For 2 years, it's like a service.
So it's like some kind of subscription.
Yeah.
So I want to be a miner.
Yeah.
And and everyone gets the equal share of the mining power, right?
Yeah, depends
on the investment, yes.
Okay. So you're infrastructure provider, and the client expects that while mining the value of the coin or something will increase, and this is their return. But for you, marginal cost of having one more client or one more miner on your system, it's usually basically zero until it reaches somewhat your capacity, right?
Basically, yeah.
Okay, so how would you know, what are the key levers for you to make this business a success? Is it investing into marketing, like this guy with this Lambo who's driving around, or I don't know how it's?
It's probably a mix of both, because we are more focused on the private companies, private investors actually. So we are not looking towards the big, crazy amounts of like the guys selling like towards the mass consumers and so on. We're more towards keeping the margins really low for ourselves, yet delivering the value and distribution of those tokens that are going to be mined, or coins that are going to be mined according to the price.
But for me, it seems that the biggest impact here is if you can buy in the global market these whatever video cards or whatever used to mine the thing, and let's say that rent is not your substantial cost item, or it's whatever, you put it in some kind of warehouse in the pool like that guy, and the rack is somehow also fixed. It might vary a bit market to market, but it's more or less. So the main cost item probably is the electricity and the marketing. No, not really.
Electricity, not really, because we are going into the new sphere. Like it's a bit different, because we know this traditional mining, which uses a large amount of electricity. We're actually dealing with a system which uses like 700 less times electricity than classical.
700 times less.
Yeah. So electricity is not an issue here.
It's a very sustainable way of doing business, because we try to cut all of our possible costs by basically outsourcing them, not outsourcing them, but insourcing them. So, I mean,
No, it's interesting. We should probably discuss afterwards. 700 times lower cost.
The ROI approximately is from 5 to 7 months, and if you think about possible market growth, it will be even faster. So, it's like being in the same ship around a year ago when the mining started.
Are you developing the system yourself?
Partially, yeah.
The system, so what is the thing that makes it so efficient? Is it somehow like algorithm? No, algorithm is preset somehow.
Algorithms.
The main.
The hardware.
Yeah, it's proof of work. This proof of work is when you're mining with a hardware like GPUs or ASICs miners. And there is another algorithm, proof of storage, which uses the capacity of hard drives.
Okay. So for me, it seems that the most value added, if you say that your product is already developed, And what it does, it somehow disrupts the market that, currently there are so many, people jumping in this, it's a mass craziness and everyone wants to jump in, and you say, I can do that at a much higher, much more efficient cost level. So what you should do, you should go and sell, and then the main impact here, the main value would come from sales actually, because otherwise, if you say that everything is fixed already and the system is here, the product is here, you got the proof of concept, people tried it, it works, you have measured over some time, the usage of electricity, and it's such a good product, and it should sell itself, but you should a little bit push it.
Yes, certainly we are going to do that as well, but namely now what's happening, you also have to deliver the value, because we are working from very, very moral principle where we want basically to set a new standard of business making, of actually business ethics, let's say, even the morals beyond. So we want to lower the margins intentionally so that the competition is not actually ripping off the people. Because with this current boom, society is going crazy, and they're becoming victims of some, Lambo guys.
Of greed.
Yeah.
So okay. So I understand. So what you're doing, you're saying that you will not. If you're, you don't want to allow that. You want to prevent from the greed or this immoral people and taking advantage of your solution. So what you're doing, you're limiting your sales channels. You're saying you will be the only distributor or some kind of no?
You're totally not limiting yourself anyhow. You're basically saying that we are going to charge a lower margin. We are not going to be as profitable as we could.
Yeah, but you need for that you need to have your own infrastructure, because other model could be, and it would be faster go-to-market model, where you would invest money, and if the solution is so good, you just fulfill the market because everyone buys it. Put it on Amazon, get some nice reviews on YouTube, and
basically focus should be on the retention, and after that, if clients are happy, they're gonna recommend to other people the product.
And that's how you also bypass and cut your crazy marketing expenses also. So
yeah, if I would be in such business, I would try to. And I would believe I would try to invest now, because it's not clear what's going to happen in 3 months. Yeah, but okay, thanks. Very interesting. Another team, what are you working on?
Creating an on-demand farm-grown product marketplace.
On demand, so someone purchased
before it was collected.
Okay.
So the main revenue is sales, the number of sales of the cards we get. And it is the average price of a card.
Of the card? Yeah.
And the costs are the purchase cost, platform cost, and delivery cost. So the main, the hard question for us, how to get the lowest cost on delivery.
On delivery, but so how does this network work effectively? So. There's some kind of platform where I see that I can buy. I will just tell you, and then you will say whether it's correct or not. Some kind of cucumbers, potatoes, carrots, I don't know, whatever. And then I say that I know that in upcoming 1 year, 5 months, I will need X amount of kilos of potatoes, and this is somewhat better than buying it in Maxima and Lidl, because this is eco-friendly, and this is the value. This is perceptual value, or there's value in pricing because you cut the middleman somehow. What is the actual value of the business you're promising to the client?
We're cutting the middleman. It's not about years. For the start, we're starting with 2 days of delivery in a week, and we're cutting the middleman.
So it's going to be locally grown. Right? So you need to have a big network of these farmers, small farmers, and then, as you say correctly, the main cost will be to take. First of all, you will need to have a critical mass of orders so that it makes sense to run this thing in general. Then these delivery logistic guys go to the farmers, they collect, they somehow consolidate orders, they collect more of these potatoes. They don't go for 2 kilos, but they go for 200 kilos. They bring it back. They somewhat, in some kind of a hub, they redistribute, and then this last mile delivery. Okay, so for me, it seems that this kind of model is very much sensitive to how many orders you will get, and you need to reach the critical mass fast. Until that, you will be burning cash every month. So the faster you get, the better. The longer you extend this thing, the more you will lose. Okay. So, and after, I think, there's always this demand and supply. After you will get enough orders, I think you can purchase, outsource, or have your own distribution. And it might be somewhat efficient if you're saying that you cut the middleman and their margin you use for a little bit more expensive, this hub spoke kind of logistics system might work. But the thing here for you is that number of orders, and behind those orders, number of specific category of goods you consolidate from specific farmers should reach some kind of critical mass so that it makes sense actually to drive. Because if it's small amounts, your cost to drive from point A to B will be the same. It will change a bit because of the weight for the car, but it will be more or less the same. But you can, whether it's a difference whether you upload full car of these kind of potatoes or you bring 2 kilograms. So this is, I think, the main thing. Thinking about how to find maybe best partner for delivery and so on. It's very important, but it's maybe secondary thing. You first should think how to reach the critical mass. Because my other hypothesis is that you also need to have, for this business model to work, first you need to have very versatile farmers. So from one farmer you can take different categories. You can get potatoes, carrots, whatever, because otherwise you will need to drive a lot. Am I correct? Yeah. And what have been your thoughts? So you said that you initially thought this is like distribution costs should go down. So what were your thoughts? What could you tweak it in the model?
We thought that we can use electric vans for the start, and the first thing not to collect from a lot of, like you said, from a lot different farmers, but to take the goods from the places which are more concentrated, like from markets, where we have like 20, 30 farmers in one place. So
and you need to ensure quality in markets, because otherwise it's yeah. Okay. Yeah, but I mean the way of thinking is correct. Is just always what this exercise allows you to do, and any kind of exercise where you put your financials and your key value drivers onto the paper in some kind of structure, and you monitor versus your peers, your similar business models, a little bit different business models. You check it over time. What it allows you to do is actually to focus on few most critical things. And for you, it's very important, this cost per drive or cost per kilometer. But in my opinion, it's not as important as getting the critical mass and critical amount of orders in amount or in size faster. Because if you will drive your cost down, but it will take you 2 years to get to the amount, where actually you can, become profitable, you're just prolonging your pain, kind of, right? So you need to put everything in numbers and really be very critical. Where are your focus points? Okay. Anyone else? Maybe someone wants to present their case. No? Then yeah.
Okay, my case. So, social park. The idea is a social park that consists of few things. So first of all, it's a greenhouse where you can buy vegetables if you wish, but this is not the main part. More, it's a restaurant where you can get the food that is straightforward from that place, from greenhouse. then because it's very nice and beautiful to sit around, so you can rent a venue for that reason, for celebrations or these kind of things. One more part is projects, that in general in social park you will be able to create any type of sustainable or project that could help people in some kind of ways. So it's pretty general. And then another part is shop. So towards going to that greenhouse and restaurant, on the side you have gift shop where people doing that handmade, but they are too small to start their own business, so they kind of sell in decent price for us as a social park to sell it for others who wants to have create like unique gifts for their friends
So
or whatever.
I'm interested. So is this model like a specialized real estate business where you will rent places or you will attract the tenants, merchants, I don't know, these creators into one place and you kind of gather them and that's the value you provide? Or you will be running all of these shops and restaurants yourself? So what is the business model behind actually? Where you will, you will bring value?
Yeah, so there are a few moments. Actually, we can split that one social park idea in general into probably 5 businesses, separate businesses. So that would be like after the discussions and all these kind of things, we will see how it's gonna go. Because at the first, it's kind of one and huge idea to collect people who just take care of those things. To have more natural food, to have more natural gifts in general. Nature, these kind of point of view, nice place to
So what's your revenue model? How you will generate revenue so that this thing would sustain itself and be, I know, a break even or profitable? If it's loss making, then it means someone needs to subsidize it or finance, which is not the way to go.
Exactly.
So
there are actually, because there are 4 kind of parts, so each of the part has different strategy for revenue. So this is one thing. That's why it's 4 times more job. But the main idea to have this social park where it's all included. So I can speak, for example, about restaurant in this case. So there are types of meal which grown just right there in the greenhouse, and for a restaurant we can take few types of strategies and strategies. So should I go into more details?
yeah, I mean, I have a few like high-level comments onto this business model in general. So first of all, if you haven't been successful entrepreneur in organic growing and caring of people and this social thing for 20 or 30 years and having, some kind of Superman trying all kind of things, better don't do a thing where you have 4 business models in it. Pick one business model and do good restaurant. Or if you're saying that you want to have a social park, a place where people gather, your business is to organize this place, to make it attractive. So invite, select good tenants, good these merchants, good restaurant, these food makers, chefs, and so on. And farmers into one place, select them, be promoted amongst people so that people go and there's a traffic, because if there's no traffic, no one will buy. These people will leave soon. Why I'm telling this, I had this one project where in Turkey I worked in shopping mall. We came in a really empty shopping mall, and our business was actually to do this. So you need to really think of actual value, how you're gonna, how you're gonna create value for tenants. So you need to think, you need to think of different ways to bring the traffic. Traffic brings revenue. Revenue makes everyone happy and sustainable and allows to flourish. I think this is not probably intersecting anyhow with the general logic. So you can as an operator of the park, you can be responsible for selecting people, for, I don't know, training them how to do the things if they're small, very small farmers or something like that. But I would really advise not to, spread yourself into 4 business models. And also from financial point of view, it's very inefficient. Let people do what they know, how to do it. General idea is nice. I think it's a real estate project. So you need to develop vision. You need to think of ways how you maximize the traffic of people, why it's interesting to people, put it in a nice story, make sure that all financials, of your organization and your project and those sub-projects are kind of coming up together so it all makes sense, and there will not be a super unique organic food restaurant that no one expects enough traffic and enough revenue, so they will not pay you and you will not be able to run other operations. So you need to somehow think it in a holistic way, and once you do that, go to investors and pitch for funding to invest into this real estate project. It's nice to do a lot of businesses, but you can try, but this I think 95% cases are not these extremely successful guys, and they will not manage to do a lot of things, and it doesn't make sense. Let better focus and create value in where you can. So this is the vision how this thing should work, right? And in terms of financials, it makes sense as well, because you're spending your resources on specific way of creating value. You're not having marketing for restaurants. You're not having separate marketing for tenants. You're not having separate marketing for B2B, these kind of investors. Consolidate the resources, because if your spending and resources are not paying back, your investment, it's not sustainable. And any kind of business, organic, this social, not social, every business must be sustainable. Doesn't necessarily mean that you need to maximize profit for someone. You can cut your fees down so that everyone, kind of flourishes there. But I think it's better to focus. I don't know, maybe it's like a little bit demotivating, but I think I wanted to show this as well.
Speak about the home story, because of some details we can't share this kind of trade things.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Sorry?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Is it by the law, is it banned to use cargo drones for deliveries?
Sorry?
Is it by the Lithuanian law, is it allowed to use cargo drones for deliveries?
Cargo drones?
Yes,
for
cargo
deliveries.
drones for deliveries.
I'm not sure. I'm not specialist. I think not.
Sustainable thing to invest in.
Might be, yes. I'm not sure. I probably need to check with Aviation Institute. There's some kind of specific rules what things can fly and how high. So we need to think about that.
Not everywhere.
Sorry?
Not everywhere.
Not
There
everywhere.
are places that was banned.
Yeah, so it's possible to develop a network of it, which would be safe.
Yeah, but for cargo you need specific size, right? So that's probably the limiting. So you need to check with a specialist. But it might be a sustainable model because.
To make a network to the whole Europe,
Yeah, so I think Amazon is investing in this already. Yeah, so I just want to go through fast the specific parts of forecasting. So revenue forecasting, you need to look at, these are things you need to take into concern, right? So when you're forecasting several periods of time and in advance in the future, you might really consider that your salesman will learn better how to sell. Your brand will be better recognized, so you get higher market acceptance. You need to take into consideration sales cycle of your target customer, because sometimes they make some kind of purchases and procurement in beginning of year, so or after they they approve the budget, so they know the X amount of money, X amount of euros that they will pay for some kind of things, and then they're choosing the provider. So you should take that into account. If you come in 5 months, it might not make any sense, or you will not make any sale. You should consider impact on pricing, that when you come to the market with your novelty or your new idea, competition might be lower than it will be later, so it might affect your pricing. So if you want to remain competitive, you might need to lower your prices. All kind of market disruptions, that's hard to predict, so I don't know, I just put it down because should be here, but it's very hard to predict. Cost of goods sold is this, keep in mind that this marginal cost of these more goods, marginal cost of, so whenever the quantity increases, the marginal cost of getting one more good probably drops down, usually in most cases, because you're buying in bigger quantities. If you're working with technology, so the more business or the more vibe on and the more activities around specific technology, the more people are interested, the more they're putting their resources into time of thinking and money into specific technology, the faster the price of the technology goes down. Cost of goods sold includes this total cost of getting a product ready for sale. So it's not only the salesman or systems or paying for the channel to sell. If it's online sales, it's channel to sell as well, but also all this packaging and shipping and everything. And every industry is different. Check industry peers. What I would do in your case, if your business model is somewhat similar to your peer or comparable business model in the same industry or in different industry, try to look whether there are big businesses like that, whether they have been covered in press, in media. If there is someone who is in maybe, I don't know, in US or in Asia, who's doing something similar but in different market, and they are publicly listed, so you will be able to really get your hands on the annual reports. You will get all these financials. It's very useful then to understand what they mean, but then you can, get to specific lines of these. How much of the cost of sales, what's the percent of their revenue is in their model, and what's in your model? What's your gross margin? What's the percent of, I don't know, if it's, for example, if it's retail business, it's very important, how much of the revenue is your rent of the shopping areas, shopping places. So what you should do, you should always, be kind of wide open and try to understand what's happening in industry. Almost never you will be successful if you focus only on your idea. You're a very good specialist. You kind of have nice vision, but you're not listening what's happening around. So you need to be open. OPEX operating. This is just a list so that you could kind of understand how to forecast. So some of the items you can easily forecast because they're somewhat proportional or related to headcount, which is number of people overall or in specific departments. So it might be obviously salaries, office-related things. So if you have, if you have 10 people and you know that your office will sustain 20, so until 20 you have fixed costs, but then you have this kind of stairs relationship. Communications, the more people you have, the more you will pay for your mobile phones and so on. Trainings, travel, and so on. Some expenses are not correlated. Marketing is one thing which is very soft and very, it's very hard to estimate. Now it's becoming easier to estimate the return on investment, but it's still rather hard. So what happens is that if you're forecasting some kind of level of marketing and you still don't know how it will happen, just just forecast specific amount, specific percent of revenue. So it means that, you know, the more you will put into marketing, the higher the revenue will be. So you're in this model where you invest money and you kind of, you know, that it converts into sales. So I don't know, 5-10% is a good number. Sometimes in some if it's B2C, sometimes it's B2B. It's different way of marketing. So it depends. R&D and patents is very industry specific. So usually how you estimate, you estimate bottom up. So kind of you're not saying this is amount of revenue or depends on people, but you know that for this technology or in this market, I need to spend 200,000. Boom, I put it in my plan. This is important thing. When you're thinking about startup and different phases of startup, you need to really separate in your head and when you're discussing with investors, what are your startup costs? So until you kind of you figure out clearly what's your business model, and or what, you know, the cost that you spend for doing something first time, and what is your actual running cost. So I have a question for you. What are startup costs? Is it everything you need to spend in the first year, or until you're profitable, or until you're cash flow positive, or all of the above? What do you think? Who's voting for A? Yeah, who's voting for B? C? Anyone's voting at all? Who's voting for D? Okay, the answer is D. Yeah, because that's the legacy of the stage where you are at. Okay, I'm not sure whether the slides will be distributed later. They will. So I'll not go very deeply into these, but once you do this planning, make sanity checks for yourself. Sanity checks is some kind of check whether, you said that you will grow your business every year by 500,000. Somehow you thought in absolute numbers. And then you see that actually it's not possible, because in percentage-wise it means maybe like 200%, and then 100%, and then less. And you need to compare, what are the average growth rates in the industry? Whether the industry is growing, or if industry is not growing, will it mean that you will take market share from everyone else? And these kind of questions you need to keep asking yourself all the time. And the most kind of useful things to check is, if we're talking about the revenue, so you check, what's the revenue per employee, what's your productivity. It's necessarily not, it's not necessarily relevant for all industries, but for most it is. Sales or profit per salesperson. How does your organizational structure compare with someone who is in similar market or doing something similar? How many people you have in marketing and sales and in back office? Maybe you have 10 times more people in back office. It means that probably it's possible to automate a lot of, or outsource a lot of these kind of activities in this business model, and you should think about that. You should always check particular expense category as % of revenue. Maybe this is relevant to monitor over time. So you plan something, then 1 year passes or 1 month passes, you see what was the actual result, and you compare that. Some kind of expense lines are stable, some kind of expense lines are fluctuating. You need to think about that. Sensitivity analysis is something more sophisticated, but basically if you did correctly this thing, and you know that there are two most impactful boxes here, two most impactful items that you need to tweak to improve your results, then you can do kind of theoretical analysis or sensitivity. If I would improve this 20%, 50%, 100%, or something bad will happen and this will drop by 30%. I don't know, price, for example, right? And then you see how does your model how is your model affected. This then helps you really to kind of say for yourself, I really believe that this was the most important thing, the most impactful. Then I need to be very careful about my pricing. I cannot give any discounts or promos, because that kind of delta or the change in price 5% might make me unprofitable, and then I don't know how to finance it. It's very it kind of helps you to also focus and put this stress points on the most important thing. Yeah, this I read in one conference. Sounds bad, but basically it means that cash flow is very, very important in startup. This is example. I will try to go through it fast. I wanted to make it visual. So this is how I would estimate or plan my startup's cost. So I have, at some point of time, I have some kind of starting cash. I know that I have $50 in my pocket, or here it's, I don't know, it's like 20,000 or whatever. I know that I will collect from my debtors from previous operations. So I sold to someone, but they're in debt for me. So I know that for these guys will definitely give me money. So it's 100% times X amount plus I expect 25% probability that these guys will give me money, and then I get some kind of expected number. I say that I expect that on average, this is quite realistic that they will give me money. So it's cash in the company. I will get advance payments. Cash in. I will need to pay salaries. Cash out. Suppliers in advance. Cash out. Prepayment for new stock. Cash out. It means that at the beginning of second week, I will be in negative balance. So maybe it's not a problem if it's on a weekly basis somewhat. Maybe I can postpone this one and problem solved. But if not, then I need to think how to finance it. Okay, I can finance it maybe through pushing my debtors so that they pay faster, but I see that the magnitude is different. I will still not get into the positive side. So I need to think of other things. And I just wanted to show you that visualizing these kind of things, or focusing on, there's a laser? Okay, focusing on most important, like this one, collections from debtors here, or paying out these prepayments, I can actually fix my cash flow. So at the end of week 4, I'm on zero, and if things go well, I'm okay. But if this would be not weeks, but it would be months, and I kind of postponed this, and I still not expecting this, so this is just kind of postponed. The pain is postponed. So it will come to me after maybe 2 months. I know that I'm in trouble. And companies don't go bankrupt because they are unprofitable. They go bankrupt because they don't have cash, and someone puts them into bankruptcy, right? So you need to think about the cash flow. You don't need to make it maybe too detailed. You need to think about key items. This 20-80 rule is magic. You should always use it everywhere. Yeah. Okay. Let's see how much time we have. I think not much. 8 minutes. So, investor point of view. This will be a little bit theory. I copied some of the slides from online. So I think we're talking, now you're in this phase. So you have idea and not much more, I think. Yes? Or you have more. You have technology. MVP. So you're somewhere in the middle of this. You're not here because the business is not running yet.
Almost.
Yeah, so you're somewhere here. When you will be running your business and you will be selling some amounts to someone, and you will get feedback, and you will reiterate, and so on. You will be here. After you will understand that out of 5 different technologies and 10 different markets, you should focus on 2 and on 1 technology, and then you say that, and you will know that every additional, for example, that every additional euro invested in marketing will give you X amount of return, and you're clear about your business model. You can enter this stage here. You grow, and at some point, all the businesses, they kind of reach this, diminishing returns, diminishing growth, and they become like established and bigger corporations, and it's slower to move and so on. So these are the stages of development, and different sources of capital are available at these different stages. So here you're investing your own money, friends, fools, and family. Government is giving to everyone all the time. I wouldn't put much it's important, it helps, but don't base your business model on government subsidies. Business angels are someone who really trust in your team and in your technology, and can give you money, finance here, become part of your team, and also help you with some of the expertise. Venture capital is more like structured, so it's some kind of funds that really believe as well. They start investing here, but they're more likely to invest here. Mortgages, blah blah. So leases, bank loans, these are banks usually, and they don't like unpredictability, they don't like risk. It's still very hard to get money here. You usually get it here. Here you usually don't need it. Here you're big enough to go for public money. The company that I work in, it's called private equity, something similar to venture capital, but it takes less risk. So we're investing here, somewhere on the stage from here to here, or from early stage to late stage. Why I'm showing this is that you will need to talk with people who will need to finance your business at some point of time. And for that, you need to speak their language, which means financial statements, understanding your business model, and so on. So for different stages of where you are with your business idea and with the maturity of business idea, there are different levels of detail you need to focus on. So I think that what we're discussing right now here today is something like here and jumping from here to here. So after this, if you do your homework, you should be able to do this, right? So it's for yourself and for your friends, fools, and family. The rough business plan, it should really focus on business model, how you will grow your top line and increase your users, clients, sales, and so on, and all kind of opportunities and risks. Business model, I'm talking in a broad way, which includes financial projections and everything else. This is the same as I said. I will not read these, but these are whether you're a startup or you're at growth stage, everyone asks you all the time the same questions. And if you, in 3 years, you will develop your business to, I don't know, like 5 million business, and you will come to me to ask for financing, I will ask you these kind of questions. So, how your P&L will develop, what are the scenarios, so what could go wrong, so what is risk for me and for you, how the cash flow will develop, and, if your startup, when you will break even. So the colleague here said that he's already planning, and so it's very good. He already answered one of these questions. So when you're raising capital, so what are your financing needs? Because you plan, that at some point you will need to invest, your liquidity will be low, so you need to finance it. So what could go wrong? How much cash will we need in worst case scenario, and so on. Yeah. How also interesting, important, how will you realize profit? So if you're building a startup, and it's sustainable, and actually it's more like about profit making startup. So if you want to actually earn money, so you need to either pay dividends, so it's so successful that every year you can pay out the retained earnings, or let's say what's left in net profit, or you need to sell the company because it's so much growing and someone wants to buy it, and then you kind of just take this capital gain. I think this is maybe 2 more slides are left. So what is required at your stage? Minimum required financing plan is you need to have cash flow calculation, or at least this, like upcoming 3-month, 6-month cash flow. This is for you. If you go to investor, maybe have a little bit longer. Forecast 3 to 5 years. Maybe it's enough. 1 to 2 to 3. 1, 2 to 3 for startup. Forecast, it means this P&L. So how soon it's reaching break even, and afterwards how it's going to generate cash. You need really detailed planning for, let's say, 1 year. 2 years is really not, in startup phase is not, you don't need that. Maybe 1 year monthly, yeah, and 2nd year quarterly is enough. So you need to know exactly what you will do for 12 months from now to 12 months ahead. And yeah, what is important, all figures must be based on reasonable assumptions. And what I mean by reasonable assumptions is the answers to these questions. But this is about internal, right? And you also have questions about your market size and so on. You have covered that in other lectures. Okay, general business plan should be clear, dynamic, so you often reiterate it's very clear, and it's not 100 analysis and a lot of numbers and no one understands, but it's really distinct. This is the value I'm doing. This is the plan I will execute. This is how I'll earn money. This is how I build my customer base. This is the opportunities in the future to cut costs, or not even cut, but optimize. Be very clear in your reasoning and clean in your form of the financial plan or business model in general. These all are applicable for business model in general and for financial plan. It should be understandable for non-experts. I skipped this convincing backed by facts, so it's about assumptions, and consistent. So it cannot be that in one place you're saying that you will grow by taking over market share, and then in another place you say that your market is growing so much, and actually a lot of these blue oceans, and no one has taken the market yet, and you will be the first one to take market. It's not consistent. It should be very consistent. So it's a consistent, there should be storyline. Investors also buy storylines. They check you on the facts. They challenge you on the facts, but it should be storyline. Okay, and the last thing is common mistakes. People are mixing up P&L, profit, and cash. Don't do that. Timing confusion. So if you get money for 12 months now, so either you allocate those, for example, you get revenue for 12 months up front, but you will have your expenses in 12 months. You need to decide how you're doing. Are you allocating the revenue as well, so that it's in the same period? Because otherwise it will disturb your view. Or you're somehow, actually no one is doing that they push into one period, so probably just you need to distribute. Startups are usually over-optimistic. You forget about growth in costs. So in 2 years, growth base might be different, and assumptions for costs base to grow might be different. And actually, this is weird because sometimes it's either too little detail or too much detail. But this is something you need to figure out yourself by trial and error. First law of startups: everything takes longer to do than you think it will. Second, everything costs more than you think it will. and no entrepreneur thinks of everything. And this is okay, but just plan and focus. Two things I want to take from this lecture. That's it. Yeah. I'm sorry that I was speaking so much, but I don't know. Now is the question time.
First of all, thank you very much. It's really helped.
Not at all. It's okay. I mean, I think you can. There's no. I don't have my email here, but if you want, we can connect on LinkedIn or somewhere, and you can always ask for questions if you want. I'm in my professional life. I'm not working too much with startups at the moment, but I worked a lot with just business models and understanding different business in different industries. So maybe I can help you.
How much is to review our business plan?
Sorry?
How much is for reviewing our business plan?
For reviewing how much? Nothing. I don't know. Let's see. If it's interesting, maybe we'll invest.
It's a lottery.
It's a lottery.
Yeah.
Okay.
You base it on blockchain and you're going to be successful like once.
I have an idea for you, for example.
Okay.
You should sell your heating systems also.
They're already doing that. And it's quite...
It's not, actually, we're talking not about the heating and not about electricity in our case.
No, I just know that when you have these machines, you have additional heating from
Yeah,
them.
but just like I told you, there is no additional heating and no additional electricity cost. So it's a bit different.
New.
But for someone in your market, your colleagues should talk with. Maybe they will build a small farm close to this heating, so they could grow your potatoes and
But if you buy this
tomatoes.
heating, I'm also in the heating business and solar panel business. So.
Yeah.
What's your particular entrepreneurial experience, like from scratch to something? Did you have any kind of this?
I was doing it for other people. I have few investments that I'm not very proud, but it's like more financial investments. I haven't developed from scratch till the end my own business, but I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm helping some few teams that are working also in this. Not few, but one team that is working in this whole crypto thing.
What's the name?
Yeah, well, after translation we can talk. No, it's very kind of minimal impact, and just we're discussing all kind of these things. I'm challenging the guys. What I like most and what I think the most value is to challenge yourself and everyone else in the team on these kind of things, and because it puts so much clarity in your mind, and everything else is just a form, and like.
Since you come from corporate environment and so on, currently there's a huge demand and actually need in the market for someone who can give not exactly the financial advice, but basically how to form accountancy-wise your entire blockchain event setup, name it.
There are a lot of these guys that now they're super expensive. Their business model is that the demand is much higher than the supply, and they're increasing costs.
If you can cooperate with a couple of different companies and so on, then just intersect and deliver the value,
Yeah.
Because we are also covering, the storage mining is just a fraction of our business.
Mm-hmm.
So we can just talk in private.
Yeah, so thank you very much.